Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg, the Fitness Gourmet. Welcome to Eat Well, Live Well, Age Well. All things that help us age well. Well, today I want to talk about working remotely. It's made life so much easier for us in so many ways, but it can also be at the cost of a huge distraction to our home and family life. The lines between work and family are becoming blurred. The distractions are endless if you're working at home, and sharing space with others during hours can really have disastrous consequences. I know that I'm trying to work through it myself. I want to welcome Janice Rostron, the founder of Just Focus and Reorganize. She's based in Los Angeles, and it's a service that provides home assistance with organization and reorganization of our home offices, both physically and electronically. Organizing and reorganizing, clearing clutter, and setting physical boundaries at home are very challenging to most people. It's one of those issues that we all seem to be thinking about as we move on in years, and that's why we should start now. So, Janice, welcome to the show, and I want to know what brings people to you.
Yeah, exactly like you said. There's usually there's two scenarios. One is that there's just that tipping point. Someone's completely overwhelmed and stressed about the amount of clutter and just stuff in their lives. Maybe they tried on their own or with family members or friends, and they just don't seem to make the progress. So it's time to call somebody who's kind of unattached from the situation. And the second is that there's a big change in their lives. Maybe they're moving, someone's moving out, someone's moving back in. Maybe there was a death in the family. Suddenly there's a pandemic and everyone's working from home.
Mhm.
That's been a big change. A relationship has ended. You're ready to purge that part of your life, or you want a relationship to begin. I've actually had a few clients contact me who were online dating and wanted a space that they were comfortable bringing someone home to. So
Oh,
um,
interesting. Wow, that's a new
that's happened
twist.
as well.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Reorganizing to work at home is the norm now. So, what is the first step towards, an organized workspace in your home?
So really, there's four main steps, and I'll go over them quickly. But this is really true of any organizing project: sorting, decluttering, organizing, labeling. When you're talking about a home office, sorting your supplies by category, and I always think about kind of how those supplies are used, like what's the function. So we have our writing supplies, which is pencils, pens, paper, post-its, supplies that put things together, like staples and paper clips, supplies that take things apart, like staple removers, scissors, mailing supplies, connecting supplies. Now that we're all online, we need, make sure our headsets are there and our USB cables are available, and storing information. So your flash drives, your external hard drives, things like that. And then the next step is to declutter anything that you're not using at all, get it out of your space. Work life has changed. So if you have that backstock of thousands of paper clips, I think about my own business. I'm pretty paperless over here. I think I've used 3 paper clips in the past few weeks. So, if you don't need all those boxes anymore, they need to leave the space. Um, and then you're going to organize. So once you've gotten rid of the things that you're not using at all, then you're organize and keep those categories intact. And you want to store them based on how often they're used. So if it's something that's used frequently, daily, weekly, make sure it's within at eye level, within arm's reach. Things that are used less often, monthly or even yearly, those can be stored up high, down low, in closets, things like that. And then label everything: the drawers, the shelves, the bins, particularly if you're sharing the space, so that everybody is involved in keeping it maintained as well. But also for yourself, even if it's your own space, you want easy access and easy way to put things away.
This is as challenging for the person you're organizing as it is for you, because a lot of people don't want to be disrupted, especially when they're working or they're busy, and you're going to you're going to upset the apple cart for them, right? You're going to come
Right.
in and all of a sudden where you're used to having something isn't going to be there. I know the
Right.
benefits are astounding afterwards. But I just want to mention that the emotional impact it has on people. If I can encourage people to understand, you'll have a disruption, but it's well worth it at the end. So we get somebody cleaned up, and after we clean up, what do you do with the items being discarded? This, we all want to recycle, we all want to throw out, but we don't know where to send it.
Right. So yes, so donate as much as possible, recycle what you can, and toss the rest. I mean, some stuff just unfortunately
Mhm.
has to be tossed. But I am an environmentally conscious organizer, so I do try to keep as much as possible out of the landfill. So donation centers have reopened for the most part. So we're kind of talking about this at a good time. A few months ago, talking about this,
Right.
there was literally nowhere for it to go. But they do have to quarantine the items, I believe, for 48 hours. So there is a backup.
Okay.
So call ahead of time. So if you're talking about just miscellaneous office supplies, Goodwill, Out of the Closet, Salvation Army are all great options. Out of the Closet and Salvation Army also do pickups. So if it's a large amount or you just don't have the time to get over there, they do pickups. If you're talking about bigger items like furniture and fixtures or household fixtures, things like that, Habitat for Humanity restores are a great resource. And I believe they may have pickups as well. Again, things may be limited these days during COVID times. And electronic waste is another big one that comes out of
Mhm.
offices. There are safe centers around the city, and that stands for solvents, automotive, flammables, and electronics. So they'll
Okay.
take all of those things, and they're located around the city with different operating hours. So you can look that up as well. And if you have a large amount of e-waste, suddenly you have 5 fax machines you need to get rid of or whatever. Homeboy Electronics Recycling is a great resource, at least here in Los Angeles. They're in downtown LA, and they'll take large amounts of business e-waste. So
That's
they're a great,
fantastic to
great
know. So
organization.
all those old phones we have sitting in a box and cords that
Yes,
don't seem to plug into anything, and
yes.
calculators that we haven't picked up in years. Good to know. Now, will the recycling places or the Goodwill, Salvation Army, etc., take open packages, say of staples or tape, paper?
I believe as long as it's in resellable conditions.
Okay.
So, if there's 4 staples left, probably not. But I think if it's in a pretty good, decent amount in the package, I believe they will.
Okay. Now, what do you do with couples who share an office? We had that in my house, and I ended up moving out and moved into the guest room. So I'm going back and forth between getting my supplies and things I need in the office and coming back into the guest room and setting it up the way I want to. It's become my
Mm,
little she cave. But there are situations where people have to share the office, even if it's a corner of the kitchen or a big space.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you did it right. So my short answer is don't share office spaces. If at all possible, create a second office
Mhm.
space. Make sure it can be just a small space that you carve out, but make sure you have enough space to work, that you have proper seating, proper lighting. During the safer at home order, our spaces have to do double duty.
Right.
It's just the nature of where we are right now. So for example, I'm currently working in my dining room. Sharing the office space worked with when my husband was working, most of the time in the office, maybe working from home once a month. Most of my work is in person at other people's homes and offices. So I just, needed a little bit of admin time. Our paths never crossed that often, but here we are, and we're currently on Zoom calls at the same time right this moment. So that just didn't work, and I resisted for a while. I was originally working at my dining room table, which is a high top with stools, and after a few months, my back was hurting, which is not good for my body or my business. So I had to buy a little desk. I had to move the dining table over. I mean, it's even I've had to do it as well. And I think That's the best way, is to just carve out a little piece that's your own. But if it's just not at all possible, try to schedule alternating call times. So maybe you're not, speaking over each other. Set up across the room from each other if you can, and invest in noise canceling headset, so you're not distracted by voices kind of right next to you. It's kind of making the best out of your circumstances.
And use the mute button when necessary, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So no one else can hear. I mean, we're all struggling with the dogs
Yeah.
barking, the
Yep.
lawnmower going on outside, the construction site down the road, and we'll be talking, and all of a sudden there's some loud boom or loud noise.
Yep,
I hope to think that everybody's a little more forgiving during COVID, with all
absolutely.
this going on. Now, in some homes, the office doubles as not only the parents' workspace, but also where the children do their homework and their projects. So in some cases, we did have this before my daughter graduated high school, that the three of us were using the scissors and the staplers and the bookshelves and the paper and the printers and so forth. So any advice to keep anybody sane during that time?
Yes. So the same rules really apply, is make sure that they have their own little carved out space. Even if it is in your workspace as well, if they do need that supervision, depending on the age level, that changes things as well. But also make sure that they have their own set of supplies too. So that, when you got that list of supplies at the beginning of the school year, this is usually for kind of elementary school age, but, make sure that that's their set of, their scissors, their paper, things like that. Just so it just doesn't become such a scramble throughout the workday and school day. And if the constant interruptions when they need help, really schedule in homework help time as part of your workday. And this is where we are these days. So they don't have to interrupt you all the time. I'm a former teacher, and so I couldn't give my attention to all 24 students simultaneously. So any kid who's been in school before knows taking turns and raising hands and and setting aside time. Then you're going to talk with the teacher at this time. So I think kids are getting a little more needy, and letting all the things they learned in school kind of slip a little bit. So just remind them, because they're a lot more independent than you think that they may be getting away with these days. So just really setting boundaries, but making sure that you kind of have some time to set aside and actually help them, because it's the school day is so strange these days that they need that extra support.
I think it's really good for the family to work this out as well, in terms of people really differentiating between work time and family time, so no one feels neglected. Because we talk
Absolutely.
about that a lot now, is that we're in the middle of a work appointment, and then something's going on in the house, and we're not accustomed to it, so we get angry. We're like, excuse me, you're yelling, or you're knocking on the door, or you're doing something,
Mhm.
and I'm actually trying to work, and they're just doing what they normally do. Is mommy's home and I need something
Right.
to eat, or I need help. And so it kind of leads into the other. I think this is more of a time management now that I think about it. But what do we recommend to people who work at home and there's no separate space to work in? I think this also applies to a single person living in a studio, that many people do work at home now. But I know from many years of experience of working at home, I don't like working in my bedroom. I don't like being in my den, which to me is a relaxing space. And then bringing my work into it makes me feel scattered.
Right. Absolutely. So, like I said, create a workspace that seems like a clear workspace. Even if it's just a small space that's just your own. Like you said, the studio apartment is a good example. And if you do have kids at home, or spouses or roommates or whatever, make sure it's in the kind of a low traffic as possible area of your home. But in terms of the space, I mean, I'm a good example. I live in a 1 bedroom, so already our bedroom was our home office, And suddenly being a bedroom and 2 home offices just wasn't working. So now my dining room is also my home office, but there's a clear separation that, at a certain point, the laptop is closed, the papers are put away, and now, now we're eating dinner, and I'm not distracted by that work at that time. And yeah, so you want to make sure that you're kind of creating a clear, even if it's a shared space, kind of a clear beginning and end of your workday. So, when I'm ready to relax, I'm walking 10 feet to the sofa, but I know that that's now the relaxing time. So, just those small victories these days are
Yeah,
worth it.
a couple of feet can be your line of demarcation, right? And could be
Absolutely.
another world from the kitchen to the living room, even though it's the same room. That's very true. The challenge, of course, of working at home is the time management for everybody, from the school to work to, and I love what you say about the boundaries of that. We have a dinner time, and whether it's one person or a family of 4 or 6, everybody should drop, finish what they're
Yeah,
doing and sit down and enjoy dinner together. That's a very critical part of family
exactly.
life, and also keeping us sane during this insane time. So what is your first approach to setting up the time management? What's some ways we can do that?
Yeah, so I calendar everything. That's always just the first thing I say to everybody. So you really clearly see where you're spending your time. And then you can, like you said, create those demarcation points where this is family time and work is done. And also, so, like I said, you can have time, you can carve out some time to help the kids, with their schoolwork, or get on your Zoom calls or whatever it is. Everything should be on the calendar, because our brains are scattered these days. We forget things. So everything's all in one place. In order to stay focused, once you are, focused on the activity, turn off all your notifications. So if you're on a laptop or a computer screen and you have every email popping up into your window, turn that off. You do not need to know when every single email comes into your life. Same thing with your phone, put it on silent, turn off all of the dings and the pop-ups for the emails. And, you don't need that many distractions. And also setting a timer so you do stay on task. That once you've determined, like, this is my time for X activity, set a timer, and that's what you're doing during that time. And also set up transition times between activities. So maybe starting, if you have an 11 o'clock appointment, you should be wrapping up the previous thing maybe at 10:55 or even 10:45. That gives you time to, file those papers away, put, kind of tidy up your space, prepare your thoughts for the next meeting. Just give, do you need to use the restroom? Do you need to eat a snack? Just give yourself those little transition times so your brain can kind of prepare for the next thing, the next meeting, the next whatever it may be. And the biggest thing is to learn to say no. Particularly in such strange times, we're kind of taking on all these new projects because we want to fill what used to be the normal workday. But now we're forgetting ourselves as well. And like you said, forgetting about the family time. And, suddenly we have all these extracurriculars or all these classes we've taken on or whatever. Say no, and that's the end of it. And that's why I calendar everything, because then I can clearly see, do I have time? If I'm shoving things in, then clearly the answer is no.
Yeah,
And this is
that's the key of time management, is that in between time. It used to be we had to allow ourselves that hour to drive somewhere, or the
exactly
time in
right.
parking the car. And now we have to think about, oh, I don't have to drive there, so I can schedule 3 things at 9, 10,
3
11,
more things,
12, and then
exactly.
you're overwhelmed and very,
Right.
very hard to work on.
Yeah, and this is actually becoming such a more common request and a common question. So I'm actually teaching a productivity course in January, because this is just, I keep hearing this question over and over, like, how do I fit it all in, or stop putting too much on my plate and actually have some sanity? So I'm actually gearing up for that in January as well.
Good. Now, what are some of the obstacles you encounter when getting people to a cleaner, organized space? I'd imagine, like we mentioned earlier, it's very traumatic for someone to, uh, one clean sweep to get everything out of the way. I like that. I like to one afternoon get everything out of my face and then I feel clean, but that doesn't work for everybody. So, what do you encounter with some people when you start to set that up?
Yeah, one of the biggest obstacles is when people just aren't ready. They may feel that this is something they should do. Maybe they, read a book or watched a Netflix series, or even someone else commented on their disorganization and their clutter, and so they feel like, ooh, maybe this is something I should deal with. But it really has to come from them. They really have to be ready, um, ready to part with those things, because it, like you said, it can be very traumatic and very exhausting to make all those decisions. And when I work in a very systematic, if you couldn't figure that out, as an organizer, but as in kind of manageable chunks. So we only work on, depending on the space, like one shelf at a time, or one drawer at a time, or one, if we're dealing with a tabletop, maybe just this, this square footage, or, to kind of make it much more manageable on people's brains, because making those tough decisions does get tricky. But really, if people are ready, then that's the ideal situation. It's really when they feel like it's an outside force, that someone else feels that they should do it, and it really doesn't come from within, and they're not quite there yet. Then we're kind of at a, you know we're kind of stuck, and we don't kind of make the progress that we should.
One of the things I saw in your bio, which was so impressed, is that you also do electronic organizing.
I
And
do,
that's
yes.
a whole nother, I mean, so many people are technologically challenged, not because we're stupid or, it's so overwhelming how how
Yes.
fast paced technology moves. Can you talk about that a little bit too and how that works?
Yes, and it's really because we weren't you don't think that way, and particularly if, if technology, it moves so quickly. If you started with, a file cabinet, then you think in terms of paper, and some people just don't think in terms of electronics. And so that's essentially what I do. I mean, even before COVID, we were becoming a much more paperless world, and now literally everything is becoming virtual. And now you have, Zoom links to keep track of, and you have PDFs and spreadsheets, and like everything is electronic, and just countless endless emails. So that's essentially what I do, just as I would with people with piles of mail and piles of paper. We sort through it, and I create a system for email maintenance, because you should actually be filing emails, just like you do, mail that comes through the mailbox that's, outside of your home or office. You should be moving those emails along, and also creating a digital file cabinet, if you will, digital file system on your computer, so you can easily find things. So it's a similar process to paper organizing and setting up file systems, but it's just, on the computer, which, that so much information bombards us online, that it doesn't take a physical space, but it definitely takes up mental space. So I create digital systems.
Janice, this is, our show here is focused on aging well. And I know that aging well starts at 30, like,
Right.
thinking as a young person. And I'm sure that unfortunately, people don't come to this young. They come to this older, when the mess is almost insurmountable. And, the hoarding disease is a whole nother level. But, people find themselves very much like me in midlife, and you've had, a few successes in life. And so far it's worked, but now you can't get it together. So,
Mhm.
I just wanted you to maybe give us some best case scenarios and worst case scenarios that you've worked with, maybe as guideposts for us to learn from as we go and maybe start setting up and coming to you for this service.
Yeah, the best case scenario, like I said, is someone who's ready, someone who really sees how the clutter is affecting them both physically and emotionally and mentally. And really that they've had some distance, because a lot of times in a cluttered environment, you don't interact with all of the items. And so once you've had that distance of time and space, it's much easier to make those decisions, because the attachment is kind of dwindling. What did I keep that for? You can't really even remember what the reasoning was. And that's kind of the best case scenario, that there's been some distance and you're ready to make those decisions, and it makes it so much easier, so that you can realize that is a different phase, like you've said, like a different phase in my life, that you don't need every artifact of every accomplishment. You've done amazing things. You don't need to hold on to the whole package of your accomplishments. Just choose the select few, so you're not overwhelmed, and that you can actually move on to what's the next feat, what's the next thing you're going to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm absolutely exhausted when I have to clear things out that I don't need anymore. I look around and it's just tiring when you
Yes.
can't find something. And once you can, it's like losing 100 pounds. You feel lighter than air when you get
Yes.
these things out of your way. So I can't recommend that enough. And, in closing, Janice, I want to thank you so much for joining us. This has been so informative. And actually, for me, it's fun to talk about, because it's exciting and uplifting, going towards our future, ways that we can free ourselves up to live life to the fullest. That's really the idea as we get
Absolutely.
older.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This was, I love talking about this. So this was fun for me.
Good, good. Janice has a course coming up on time management, which is exactly what we're talking about, and how to organize your life. It's called timetopower.com. Well, that's the website. Go to timetopower.com. You can also reach Janice at jfnr.net. And we will also post that at the bottom of the show when it airs. So Janice, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we hope to have you back, maybe with some more success stories.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.